Alright, so now we're going to talk about the third group of functions under the category row level calculations, the date functions. And there are three use cases for the date functions in Tableau. The first one is to extract specific date part from our date, like a day, year, and month. And for that, we have 6 different functions in Tableau: the date part, date name, date trunc, day, month, year. The second use case is to add and subtract date values in our data source. So here we have 2 functions, date add and date diff. The last use case is to find and fetch the current date and time. And here we have 2 functions, today and now. So those date functions gonna give us a tool to manipulate and transform the date values in Tableau. We're gonna start now with the first use case, how to extract specific part from the dates using those functions. And as usual, it's really important to understand the concept behind them, then we're gonna practice in Tableau. So let's go. Alright everyone, so in Tableau there are 2 ways on how to manipulate, transform the fields with the data type date. The first one is to do it globally in the data source for all worksheets, all workbooks. The other way is to do it locally, only in one worksheet, only in one view. So for the first one, if you are manipulating the date and you want to reuse it in different worksheets, so in order to do that, we can go and create new calculated fields using the date functions. But now on the other hand, if the transformation is not that important, you don't want to reuse it, you don't want to use it in any other worksheets, you need it only once in one view, then instead of creating new calculated field in the data source and using the date functions, we could just simply go and change the date format directly in the view, which is way easier and quicker than creating new calculated fields. So as you can see, there is like 2 methods on how to manipulate and transform the dates in Tableau, either using the date functions or changing the date format. And now if you ask me which method should I use, you have always to ask the following question: is the transformation going to be needed in different worksheets? Then yes, go and create a new calculated field using the date function. But if the transformation is only needed for one view, then you have to change the date format directly in the visualization. So now we're going to go and focus on the date functions since we are talking about the calculations, and at the end we're going to talk about the date formats. Alright everyone, so in Tableau we got a bunch of date functions that all has the same goal, to extract date parts from specific field, and we can use them to generate such a view. So as we can see over here, we have the years, we have the months, the quarters. All those informations comes only from one field, the order date, and we can build from all those new information that we extracted a lot of analysis and insights about our data, like the one that we are seeing here, the heat map. So now let's go first understand those functions, and then we come back to Tableau. Alright guys, so now we're going to talk about the first date function in Tableau, the date part. We can use it in order to extract a piece of information from our date fields. So for example, we have the following date. It is structured from year, month, and a day. We can use date part to extract one piece of information, like for example the year. So if we are extracting the year, the output gonna be 2025. But if we are extracting the months, we're gonna get the August 8. And if you are extracting the day, we're gonna get 20. And here it's very important to understand that if you are using the date part, the output gonna be in number. So the year gonna be in number, the months will not be August, it's gonna be in number, so it's gonna be 8. Same thing for the day, so you will get 20 as a number. So let's see the syntax in Tableau. It's very simple. So it starts with the date part, then Tableau needs from you 2 informations. The date part, here Tableau can ask you which piece of information you are interested in. Do you would like to have the year, a month, a day, and so on? And the second part, the second argument, is gonna be the date field that we want to manipulate, and the output, the result of this function, gonna be a number. So now let's take an example. We're gonna take date part. Now we are interested in the information of day, so we would like to extract the day information. Then our date gonna be look like this. The output gonna be 20. If we want the month, then we have to specify a month at the date part. And if we do it on this date, we will get the month 8. The same thing if you want to get the year. So here we specify the year at the start, then our date, the output gonna be 2025. So that's it for the date part. This is one method on how to extract a date part from a specific date. Let's move to the next one. We have the date name. Let's see the syntax in Tableau. It's exactly the same. So it starts with the date name. as a keyword. Then Tableau needs from you two informations, which part of the date you are interested in, and give me the field that you want to manipulate. But this time the output gonna be a string value. So let's take an example. Let's say that we are interested in the year part from our date. So the output gonna be again 2025, but the value gonna be in the data type string. But this time, if you say, you know what, I'm interested in the month, so you specify a month as a date part, this time Tableau gonna answer with August instead of 8, because the output here is string. So you will get the name of the month as an output. And now the next one, if you say, I'm interested in the day, so if you specify in the date part a day instead of month, you will get as well a 20, but as a string value. So that's it for the date name. It's very similar to the date part, right? But the only difference is that there you are getting a number, but with the date name you are getting a string value. So this is another method on how to extract the date parts from a date. Let's move now to another set of functions that could be used as well to achieve the same goal in order to extract dates parts from a date. So this time we have three quick functions in order to extract quickly the date part from a date. They are my favorite. I tend always to use them in compared to the other two because they are really easy to write. So the syntax in Tableau gonna look like this. The first function, it accepts only one argument, a date. Same thing for the month and for the year. The output gonna be a number, so it's like the date part function. So for example, if I'm interested in the day, I can do it like this. I use the function day, then the date that we want to manipulate, then the output gonna be 20. As you can see, compared to the others, it's really quickly to create, right? So here we don't have to specify for Tableau in the syntax the date part because the function name called day. The same thing for the month. If I'm interested only on the month, I can just use the function month in order to extract the August or 8. And for the last one, if I'm interested in the year, I can use the function year. So as you can see, they are really easy and quick to create if you compare it to the other two. So as you can see, they are really easy. Let's move on to the next one. This is gonna be slightly different than all others. We have the DATETRUNC. Okay, so some facts about this function. It is a little bit complicated. A lot of people don't know about it, but I tend to use it a lot. It's a very useful function, but it is not that famous. Think about the DATETRUNC like a rounding function in numbers. So if you have a lot of details in one date, you can round the date to specific level. So what this means, if we have the following date time, so we have here like hierarchy, right? We have a year, month, day, hour, minute, and seconds. So we are seeing in this data a lot of informations, and sometimes you are not interested in a lot of details like seeing the seconds, minutes, and hours. You would like to see only at the month level. So what we can do, we can use the DATETRUNC in order to round those numbers. Let's check first the syntax in Tableau. It's very similar to the others. It looks like this: DATETRUNC, then you specify the date part, and then the date that you want to manipulate. The output this time, it will not be a number or a string, it's gonna be date and time. Okay, the best way to understand this function is to have some examples. So let's say that we specified at the date part a day, and then we have our time and day over here. Then what can happen, what you are telling Tableau is that the time informations are really detailed for me, and I'm interested only to see this piece of information at the day level. So I'm interested only at the day informations. I'm not interested in the time. So what can happen in the output is that Tableau gonna return the same informations, but this time it's gonna reset everything at the time. So you can see we are maintaining all the informations about the year, month, and day, but anything below the day is gonna be resetted to zeros. So as I said, it's like rounding numbers, right? You are rounding the information to a specific level. So now let's move to the next level where you say, you know what, I'm interested at the month level. So you specify at the date part a month, then we're gonna have the same information over here. So what you are saying to Tableau is that I'm not interested in the details in the day. I would like to see my information at the month level. So with that, we're gonna get the 1st of August in 2025. Now we're gonna go one more step where we're gonna say we are interested only at the year level. So if you go and specify at the date part, the year, what's gonna happen? You tell Tableau, I'm not interested in anything else. I'm just interested in the year. So I think you already got it. What's gonna happen? Everything gonna be resetted. So anything below the year, so the month, the day, the time, gonna be resetted to 1 over here, then zeros at the times, and we're gonna have only the value 2025. So that's it for this function. It is very useful in many calculations to use the DATETRUNC. So now let's go and compare all those functions side by side. We have here as a rows the date part, so we have year, quarter, month, day, and so on, and then we have here in the columns those different functions. I don't include here the day, month, and year functions because it's very similar to the date part. So here the first thing to understand is that the date part output gonna be a number, date name output gonna be string, DATETRUNC output gonna be date and time, and we're gonna work with the same example. So we have the following information about the date and time. So now let's go and see the output of those functions in those different levels in the date part. So now let's start with the first level, the year. If you say I would like to have the date part of this information, you will get 2025. The same thing for the date time, but this time for the DATETRUNC you're gonna reset everything below the year, so you will get the 1st of January 2025. So let's move to the next level. We have the quarter. The date part quarter of this date is going to be 3. The same for the date name, it's going to be 3, but this time it's interesting, right? Because in date time we don't have usually the quarter informations, so this time it's going to reset to the first month of the quarter. It's going to be the month number 7. So let's move to the next one. We are at the month level, so if you use the date part you will get 8. If you use the date name you will get the full name of the month, August, and if you use the DATETRUNC you're gonna reset everything below the month and you will get the first day of August. Moving on to the date, if you use the date part you will get a number 20, the date name you will get a string value 20, and this time at the DATETRUNC you are resetting the whole time. Moving on to the next one, we have alternative for the day, and here we're gonna get the weekday, the number of day inside a week. So here we're gonna get the number 4 from the date part because it is Wednesday. So if you are using the date name you will get the full name of the day, Wednesday, and for the DATETRUNC nothing gonna change, we're just gonna reset the time as well. And now if you are moving in details, if you extract the hour for the date part and date name you will get 9, and here as you can see we are resetting now only the minute and the second because you are not interested in it. So moving on to the next one, minute, we will get 45 and date part, date name, and here we are resetting only the seconds. As you can see only seconds are zeros. Now let's move to the lowest level in the hierarchy. We have the second, so we're gonna get 21, 21, and the output gonna be exactly the same value in the input. So with that you can see the big picture using those 3 functions and what are the main differences between them and what you're gonna expect if you are using them. So now let's go back to Tableau and start practicing those functions. Okay, so now we're gonna go to our big data source. Let's go to the orders and we will be manipulating the order date. So let's take it to the view. Tableau gonna convert it immediately to a year. So we are not seeing the original data, we are seeing only the year part from the order date. Because Tableau wants always to make visualizations, and of course it makes sense to have years instead of all dates inside our data source. But in order now to show all the data like in our data source, we're gonna go over here and switch it back to the exact date. So let's click on it and Tableau gonna convert it to continuous, but I would like to see all values. So we're gonna switch it to discrete. So now as you can see we get all the values exactly like the source system. So we have around 5 years of data. So now we're gonna go and practice by extracting the date parts. We're gonna start with the year. So let's go and extract those years. We're gonna go and create a new calculated field. Let's call it order date year. So here we have a lot of ways in order to get this information. We can use the date part, the date name, the DATETRUNC, or even the year function. Alright, so now we're gonna start with the date part, and as you can see it accepts 2 arguments, but the third one is optional. Here you can define what is the start of the week, but I usually leave it empty. So the date part that we want to extract now is the year, then the date that we want to manipulate is the order date. So that's it, and as you can see that the calculation is valid. Let's go and hit OK. And as we learned, the output of the date part gonna be a number. That's why Tableau gonna create a new continuous measure. But I would like in the visualizations to see distinct values of the years. So I'm gonna go and convert it to a dimension. So now as you can see it jumps to the dimensions and we have it now as a discrete dimension. Let's bring it to the view and check the results. As we can see now we have all the years extracted from the order date. So now let's go and try the other methods. Let's replace the date part with a date name. Here it's very important to understand that the data type gonna change. So here we have it as a number, and if we switch it to data name, we're gonna get it as a string. So let's go and change our calculation. Instead of date part, I'm gonna have date name. So let's hit apply, and as you can see, immediately the data type gonna switch to string value. But in the view, we're gonna get exactly the same result, right? So nothing gonna change, only the data type. Now we're gonna move to the easiest one, the quickest one is to use the year function. So instead of the whole thing over here, we're gonna write year, and we don't have to specify the date part. That's why we are getting an error. We need only our date that we want to modify. So that's it. Let's hit apply. As well, nothing gonna change in the view, but the data type gonna switch to number because the output of these functions is a number. So now you might ask me, okay, which one should I use? I recommend you always to use the quick one, of course, but what is more important is the data type. The data type number is always faster than the data type string. The data type string is the worst. It is the slowest data type from all others. So we always try to avoid the data type string in the visualizations, not to have bad performance in our views. So if you are thinking about those three functions, I would always avoid the date name. So now we are left with two functions, DATEPART and the quick function. I would always go with the quick one, right? Because it's easier to write. So I would prefer in this situation to have year order date like I'm showing it in the view. But of course, in a lot of situations, you want to show, for example, the day name or the month name. So it depends really on the requirement, but if you can avoid it, don't use date name. So that's it. This is my recommendations to you and what I usually do. So now let's close this and extract another part from the dates. We're gonna have the quarter. So here again, we have the three options and all three deliver the same information. So I would go and create a new calculated field. Let's call it order dates, quarter, and this time I'm going to use as well the quick one. So quarter, order dates. So that's it. It's really simple, right? Let's hit OK. And now we have again a new continuous measure. I would like really Tableau here to create immediately a dimension. So I'm going to go and convert it again to dimension because I use it in the view as dimension. Let's check the results and we can see we have now the quarter number, which is correct. All right, so now let's go and extract another information from our dates. We're gonna get the month. So let's go and create again a new calculated field. We're gonna call it order dates, month. And now this time we can use a month function and our field order dates. It's very simple, right? So let's go and hit OK. And we're gonna convert it again to dimension and bring it to the view. So with that, we are extracting the month information from the order date. So everything looks fine here. We have September, August, and that's it. And here we are usually in this situation where the users would like to see the months as a full name. So instead of having the month number, we would like to have the month name, which I really agree because it's easier to read the month name than the number. So in order now to change it, we're going to use the date name function. So let's go and change our calculation. So let's go and edit. And now instead of month, I'm just going to remove it. Let's have the date name. Then the part going to be month. And then we have our order dates. So let's hit OK. And now, of course, what happened? We changed the data type and as well the values inside this field. So we are now getting the complete name of the month. So we have January, February, and so on. So that's it. This is how we can extract the different date parts from our original field, the date. So now the question is how to use those new informations in our views. All right, so now we're going to go and create a view from three informations: category, order date, and sales, using a heat map or a highlighted table. So now the first thing that I would like to do is to remove the order date. This is a lot of details. We don't need it in the view. Then we're going to have in the rows the year. I'm going to leave it, but I would take the quarter to the columns and as well the month. And of course, what is missing now is to fill those gaps using a measure. So our measure going to be the sales. So let's drag and drop it over here. So now in order to convert it to a heat map, we have to add it as a colors. So let's take the sales again and put it in the colors, or you can hold Control and drag it to the colors. We're going to get the same results. Now we are almost there. I would like to have, instead of text, I would like to have squares in order to get the heat map. So with that, we got a heat map. We can change the colors if you want. So let's go to colors, edit colors, and I would like to have it as blue. So hit OK. So with that, we have created our heat map using only one field, the order date. So we have the years from the order date, we have the months from the order date, and as well the quarter. So as you can see, those parts that we extract from the date are really useful to make visualizations. So now we can go and add the final touch in this view, and that is by making abbreviations from the month name. As you can see here, the February is really big for the cell over here, so we can make it shorter. In order to do that, we can use the lift function. So let's go to our calculated field and edit it. And now before, we're gonna add left, and then at the end we're gonna add 3. So I would like to get only 3 characters from each month. Let's go and hit OK. Perfect. Now we have abbreviations for each month and the view look more professional. There is that thing that we have to add. I promise you the last one. It is the category. We forgot about it. So let's go to the categories and just drag it before the year. So with that, we got really nicely those categories and we can see inside it how those categories are developing over the time. So with that, we got a really nice heat map with all those informations from the date. Now we have in our data source a lot of new informations about the order date where we can use it like almost everywhere. Now we have another very common use case for those new informations where we can use those date parts as a filter. So let me show you what I mean. Let's go again to our orders and we're going to go to the month. So right click on it and show it as a filter. The same thing we're going to do for the year. So right click on it and as well show it as a filter. So now we can see those informations on the left side and the logical order is very important. So first a year, then a month. And since the month has a lot of values, let's go and switch it to a drop down with multiple values. So now using those filters, the users can go and specify what is the scope for this view by changing the values of the year and as well for the month. So this is very common use case for the date parts in Tableau. So that's it for those functions. Now let's move to the last one. We have the data trunk. Okay, so now in order to see the effect of the date trunk, let's go to the big data source and get all the order dates to the view. I would like to see the exact date, so let's switch it to exact date and again to discrete to see the values. Alright, so next we're going to take the sales to the view as well. And with that you can see we are seeing all the days, all the information that we have inside the data source, and we have a lot of details. So now let's say that I'm not interested in the days, I would like to see one date for each month. So we would like to have this date at the month level. In order to do that, we're going to go and create a new calculated field and we're going to use the date trunk. So let's go and do that. We're going to call it order date and then trunk. So the syntax is going to be like this, date trunk, and it accepts two arguments. The first one is going to be the date part, which level we want to see in the view. So we want to have the month. So let's specify here month. Then the date that we want to manipulate, which is the order date. So that's it, and the calculation is valid. Let's go and hit OK. And as you can see now on the left side, we got a new dimension with the data type date and time. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go and replace the order date with this new field. So just put it on top of it. And again, here we have to do the same thing. So right click on it, switch it to exact date, and then again to the discrete, and now we have a new date field where everything at the month level. So we have always the first of the month, so we have the 1st of January, the 1st of February, and so on. So as you can see now, the list is shorter, right? Because we have now one row for each month. Before we had one row for each day. So now I'm not interested in those zeros in the view. I would like to get rid of them. In order to do that, we can change the data type. So let's go to our date trunk and let's switch it from date and time to date. So let's go and do that. So as you can see now, we have a date field and all the time is away. So now let's say that I would like to have a date only at the year level. So I don't care about the days and the month. I would like to have one row for each year. So in order to do that, we're going to go and edit our calculated field. And now simply we're going to go and change the value from month to year. So that's it. Let's go and hit apply, and you're going to see over here that we have now one row for each year. So now we have a field always at the year level, and we got like around 5 years. So as you can see with the date trunk, we can control the level of the date field. So let's say that we want to switch it to day. So we're going to go and switch the year to day. And now with that, we're going to get all the details. We have one row for each date. And with that, we have a lot of details. So we are back like the original field, order date. So this is how we work with the date trunk in Tableau. Okay, so there is another way in order to visualize the effect of the date trunk. So let me show you how to do it. Let's first close this thing here, and then we're going to switch the order date trunk to continuous field. So let's go and do that. And now let's go and flip everything. So we're going to have the order date and the columns and the sum of sales at the rows. And instead of having bar, let's have a line. So now in the visualizations, we have a lot of marks. So if you mouse hover on those informations, you can see we have one mark for each day. And that's because we have defined in the order date trunk that we are at the day level. And you can see here on the details, we have around 1,800 marks in this one view. So now if you say this is a lot of details, let's switch it to month. So let's go to our calculated field, edit it, and just move it over here on top. So instead of day, we're gonna have a month. So let's go and hit apply. So let me just close this from here and let's check the view. We have now for each month one mark. So we are at the month level and the marks are totally reduced. Yeah, so we have only 60 instead of thousands of marks. So with this, we don't see a lot of details in the view. We have one mark for only 1 month. So this is the power of the date trunk. Let's say that we want to go to the years, and I think you know already how many marks we're gonna get. We're gonna get only 5 marks. So each point, each mark gonna represent a year. So this is the power of the date trunk to control your view and which details we are talking about. Alright, so that's it for those functions. They are really great in order to extract specific parts from a date, and as you can see, they are really useful for the visualizations. So now we used a lot of calculated fields. As you can see on the left side, we have a lot of new dates in our data source, which is globally. That means if I go to any other worksheets or even to any other workbook connected to my data source, I'm gonna see the exact fields that I created using the calculated field, and I can go immediately and start reusing them in my visualization, which is gonna save a lot of time by doing formatting and so on. So that's it, how to extract the dates parts using calculated fields to be globally. Next, we're gonna start talking about how to do it quickly locally for only one view by formatting the field. Okay, so now we're gonna start from the scratch. We're gonna go to our big data source. Let's go to the orders and get the original field of the order date to the columns. And again, let's take the cells to the rows. Now, as you can see, Tableau always brings it as a year. And that's because it wants to visual only small amount of data at the start, and then you decide on what you need. So here we can go and manipulate the order date directly in the view by changing the format instead of going and creating calculated fields. Now, in order to format the date, we're gonna click on the dimension itself, so right click on it, and now we have here 2 important sections. So the first section is a discrete section where it's gonna use the function DATEPART, and the other section is a continuous section where it's gonna use the date trunk. And here always on the right side, as you can see, we have those gray examples in order to show you which format gonna be presented in the visualizations. For example, there is no difference between this year and this year, but here we have the quarter Q2, but here we have the quarter plus the year. So you can see the formats that Tableau gonna use in the presentation, in the view. So now let's go and check the differences between this month and this one. So let's start with the first one. Let's click on month. So now as you can see, our field stays blue, so that means it's discrete, and we have those values, January, February, March, and so on. So we have it as a text. And if you would like to know how Tableau did create this, you can go over here on the month, double click on it, and you're gonna see the format. So Tableau he is using DATEPART month, then the order dates. So you can see the syntax that is Tableau is using to quickly format your view. So now let's go to the next one. We're gonna have the month as a continuous field. So right click on it again, and now we're gonna have the month plus the year. So let's go and click. Now you see that our field is continuous, and if you double click on it, you can see that Tableau is using date trunk. So now we see the years in the axis, and each mark, each point of those stuff are a month. So as you can see, it's very easy. We are just clicking around and we are changing the whole format of our dates. So what I usually do, I go and select different formats until I'm convinced about the correct format that can represent my data. And there are as well a lot of different formats. So let me show you. Let's go to the order date. And as you can see, we have, the year, quarter, month, but here we have the option of more. You can see we have a week number, a weekday, and you get more options if you go to the custom. Now here you're gonna get a list of all possible formats that we can use in order to change the structure of our date. The same thing, of course, for the continuous field. So if you go again to the continuous, you can see we have here as well more. So you click the custom, and as well you can change the different formats. And of course, any decision that you are making now on the view, it's gonna stay only in this view. So if you switch to any other worksheets, you will not find what you have already formatted. So this is the only disadvantage of making a lot of decisions in one sheet, then you will not have it in the next sheets. And there is as well more options on how to format the fields. For example, let's go to the order date, right click on it, and let's choose this month as a full name. Then I'm just gonna switch those columns with the rows. Now you can see that in the header we have the full name of the month, but we can go and change the format of those headers by just right click on it and then go to format, and then on the left side we can change the display format of the header. So for example, on this one, on the dates, If you click on it, you will get different options, like here, for example, the abbreviation. So once you click on it, you can see now we have an abbreviations of the month name, or we can get the first letter of each month if we want really to make it small. So we can go over here and change it to first month. With that, we're gonna get the first character of each month. And of course, those formats are not only for the month. Let's take, for example, the weekday. So we're gonna go over here, then switch it to weekday. We have here the full text of the day. So in order to make it abbreviations, we're gonna go on the left side again and switch it to abbreviation. And with that, we're gonna get a shortcut for the weekday. So as you can see, by just clicking around, we're gonna change and manipulate the values of the dates inside our data source without writing anything, without writing any syntax or creating new calculated fields. So we can just do it quickly in one view. But here, if you find yourself that you are repeating the same format over and over in different sheets, I recommend you to go and create a new calculated field for that to store it at the data source and use it once you need. Alright guys, so that's it for those functions and how to format the dates. Okay guys, so with that we have learned how to extract a specific date part from our date field. Next we're going to talk about two functions, dateAdd and dateDiff. And if you like my content and you want to support the channel, then I really appreciate it if you support, like and comment. This is really going to help the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye.